In the US, the term $200 smartphone isn't likely to bowl anyone over. After all, carrier subsidies routinely bring the retail price at least that low for some of the fanciest devices you can find. But when you break or lose that phone and need to replace it on the cheap, or when you tally up the total of all those monthly installments, its true cost becomes clear. Is it possible, then, to buy a smartphone that costs only $200 or $300 off contract while also bringing the experience of a much more expensive flagship? ASUS gave it a go. Let's see if it succeeded. I'm Michael Fisher with Pocketnow, and this is our video review of the ASUS ZenFone2. For all its potential to redefine the affordable smartphone segment, the ZenFone2 makes a pretty low-key first impression. With a 5.5-inch Full HD display, it's a big phone. And with 170-gram mass and nearly 11mm thickness, it's pretty hefty, too. The features that could make it stand out are minimized or watered down. The cool rear-mounted volume key, for instance, is also shrunken and subdued compared to competitors. The capacitive buttons below the screen don't light up, which is weird. And the power button is positioned way up top where it's tough to get at. Fortunately, you can double-tap the Gorilla Glass 3 over the IPS display to wake it up, but don't expect to be blown away by the brightness. While it's plenty colorful, it's also quite a dim panel in even moderate daylight, and viewing angles are nothing to scream about either. It's only when you look beneath the surface that things start getting exciting. The budget model ZenFone2 takes its power from a 1.8 GHz Intel Atom processor backed up by 2 GB of RAM, while the higher-end trim packs in a 2.3 GHz processor augmented by a whopping 4 GB of RAM. Toss in dual SIM card support, micro SD expansion, and an embedded 3000 mAh battery, and you've got a smartphone that means serious business. And if you want everyone to know that it's much more badass than its drab gray cover implies, ASUS also sells an array of colorful back covers to customize the look and feel. The customizability doesn't stop there. If 2015 is the year of user-tailored software, the ZenFone2 fits right in. While the Zen UI launcher rides atop an aging Android 5.0 foundation, it redeems itself with some of the deepest interface management available out of the box. Using a mixture of icon packs, wallpapers, and themes, you can upgrade the ZenFone's cartoony stock interface very easily. My favorite combination over a week of testing has been the silhouette icon pack over the travel theme with card flip animations. But there are literally thousands of other combinations you could choose. ASUS has also included lots of little conveniences. Swiping down from anywhere on the home screen triggers the notification shade, for example, and double-tapping the status bar or a blank portion of the wallpaper turns the screen off. And when the phone is locked, you can jump right into specific apps by tracing a letter on the screen. If you've got younglings, there's a dedicated kids mode, complete with app siloing and a timer that shuts down access after a predefined period. We've seen all this stuff before on other phones, but it's nice to have it all gathered together under one roof. The ZenFone2 also packs an awful lot of bloat for an unlocked device. Probably the most visible are system utilities Clean Master and Doctor Safety. Now, each title does enjoy a very high rating on the Google Play Store, and Clean Master is actually quite therapeutic. I love hitting the boost button and watching it clear up vast swaths of RAM in seconds by closing background processes. But for years, it's been debated whether apps like this are anything more than a placebo for smartphone micromanagers. And while I do enjoy the sense that Clean Master is boosting my system performance, it's not at all clear that it actually does. As for all the other cruft ASUS packs in, it runs the gamut from uninvited preloads like Omelette Chat and Zenio to various PC remote control and cloud storage apps. Fortunately, you can manually uninstall the worst of it. If a budget phone makes a compromise, more often than not you find it in the camera. But the ZenFone2 mostly avoids that trap. I say mostly because there are definite compromises here. There's no optical stabilization in sight, the double-click volume key shortcut doesn't always work, and the viewfinder software is like something out of 2012 with its 17 separate shooting modes. But start snapping pictures, and the results might surprise you. With space to spare on our 64GB review unit, I cranked up the resolution to the full 13 megapixels, and what I found was a camera that did really well in broad daylight, with sharp detail, crazy colors, and fast enough shutter speed to take the blur all the way out of a passing commuter rail train. Whether the super saturation will impress you or put you off will depend on how much you value authenticity in your photography. These are definitely more colorful reproductions than the real-world subjects they represent, and the cartoony effect gets much more pronounced in HDR mode. But given the choice between too much color and not enough, well, call me basic or whatever, but I'll take the former any day. ASUS tosses in a neat trick here with its so-called super resolution mode, which combines 4 photos to produce one giant 50-megapixel image. This takes a longer exposure time, but it also works pretty well. Comparing a super resolution shot to a standard 13-megapixel photo of the same scene, the super photo features more detail and less noise. And the night mode does indeed bring more light into the frame using digital stabilization, though you'll want to be sure you're truly in the dark before you use it, and you need to be okay with a much lower resolution photo as well. Does the ZenFone 2 have the best smartphone camera ever? Not at all. There's an awful lot of artificial sharpening in almost every image, low-light photos have a lot of digital noise, and HD video suffers from shaky cam and exposure problems, even in ideal conditions. But this camera, like every other aspect of the ZenFone 2, needs to be considered through the lens of its price. It is quite possibly the best camera on an affordably priced smartphone. An Intel chipset on an Android phone is a relative rarity these days, so I wasn't sure what to expect from the ZenFone 2's performance. Turns out, I had nothing to worry about. The ZenFone 2 runs like a dream. Stutter and lag is so rare as to be almost non-existent. Graphically loaded games run without a hitch. And here's the kicker, swapping back and forth between them is just as effortless. Again, this is the higher-end spec-loaded model, but if the entry-level version performs even half as well as this, it'll be worth the cost. The ZenFone 2 lives up to the phone portion of its name. Calls are reasonably clear and loud through the earpiece. Unfortunately, conference calls and media playback are no picnic at all. Despite that big back-mounted grille, the loudspeaker itself is tiny and tinny. Even plugging in a set of earbuds didn't help with the latter. No matter what software profile I used when playing music or podcasts, sound was just too quiet and too thin. An audiophile's dream, this phone is not. Finally, in endurance, the ZenFone 2 is about average. There's certainly potential for it to be a road warrior with a big 3000 mAh battery, quick charging capability, ultra power saving mode, and other optimizations. But the combined drain of whatever leaks there are in Lollipop and my usual bevy of social media apps means I can't get much past 4 hours of screen-on time per charge. I can usually get through a full 12-hour day of moderate use, which is fine. The ZenFone 2 isn't the only affordable smartphone with compelling specs. Beating ASUS to the punch this year and last were OnePlus, Motorola, Nokia, and Alcatel One Touch, among others. But of all those, the ZenFone 2 is easily the most audacious. This $299 model packs responsiveness, customizability, and tons of features into an absurdly potent hardware package, and it throws in a pretty good camera to boot. It's not a true grand slam, but for a power-hungry pragmatist on a budget, the ZenFone 2 is pretty much impossible to beat. For more on the ASUS ZenFone 2, check out the full written review, available May 27th at Pocketnow.com and linked in the description below. Please subscribe to Pocketnow here on YouTube, give us a thumbs up, and spread the word on social media if you did enjoy this video. Till next time, this has been Michael Fisher, Captain Two Phones on Twitter, reminding you that Zen is in the eye of the phone holder. Yeah, I said it. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.